Hello there, little laughers and screamers. It's your favorite painted pal, back with another tale to tickle your funny bone. Or maybe just chill it to the bone. Hi-hee. It all started on a night just like this one. Dark and quiet. The kind of quiet that makes you hear things that aren't there. I was tidying up my little corner of the world, polishing my favorite squeaky nose, when I noticed something odd. Behind my giant floppy shoe rack, there was a door. Now, you might think, what's so scary about a door? Oh, but this wasn't just any door. It was small, painted a dizzying swirl of colors that seemed to move when you weren't looking directly at them. And the strangest part, I'd lived in this place for ages, and I'd never ever seen it before. My curiosity, it's as big as my smile. So I reached out, my gloved hand trembling just a little, and turned the tiny brass knob. It didn't squeak. It chimed a single clear note that hung in the air like a frozen breath. The door swung open into blackness. Not just dark, but a deep, swallowing void. A strange, sweet smell, like burnt sugar and forgotten memories, wafted out. So, what did I do? I took a step through. Of course, a clown's got to explore. The first place was silent, utterly, completely silent. I was standing in a forest of gray, spindly trees that had no leaves. The ground was soft, like ash, and the sky was a permanent, starless twilight. I tried to make a sound, to test it. I squeezed my horn. Nothing. I let out my best, most booming laugh. Silence. It felt like the world had a giant finger pressed to its lips, shushing everything into nothingness. The silence started to feel heavy, pressing in on me, making my chest tight. I saw figures in the distance, tall and thin, just standing between the trees. They weren't moving, just watching. I could feel their eyes on my painted face. And let me tell you, it takes a lot to make this smile waver. I didn't stick around to see if they'd break the silence. I found the swirly door again, tucked behind a particularly miserable-looking tree, and scrambled back through. I didn't land in my room. Oh no, that would be too easy. This time, the world was upside down. I was standing on the ceiling of a grand ballroom. Crystal chandeliers grew up from the floor like glittering weeds, their light flickering erratically below me. On the floor, which was actually the ceiling, masked figures waltzed in slow, jerky motions. Their movements were all wrong, like puppets with tangled strings. And the music? It was a beautiful waltz, but played backward. Each note a discordant screech that clawed at my ears. The dancers' heads were all tilted at the same unnatural angle. Their masked faces pointed directly up at me. They never missed a step, just gliding and turning, their empty eyes fixed on the clown who didn't belong. It felt like I'd stumbled into a broken music box, and I was the one winding it the wrong way. The door appeared in the middle of the dance floor, and I had to time my jump perfectly to avoid the spinning, broken dancers. I tumbled through, my heart doing a frantic little pitter-patter against my ribs. This next place was worse. It was a hall of mirrors. But these weren't funhouse mirrors. Oh no, every reflection was me. But wrong. In one, my smile was stretched into a grotesque, weeping gash. In another, my eyes were black, empty pits. A third showed me with long, sharp fingers, and another showed me with no face at all, just a blank, white surface. I walked down the hall, and with every step, the reflections became more monstrous, more twisted. They started moving on their own. The weeping me began to sob silently, tears of black ink rolling down his cheeks. The one with sharp fingers started scratching at the glass from the inside, the sound a faint, dry scrape. I started running, but the hall seemed to stretch on forever, an endless corridor of my own worst fears. The reflections began to whisper things, my own voice twisted into a hateful rasp, telling me I was a joke, a failure, a nightmare nobody wanted. I finally saw the door at the very end of the hall. As I ran towards it, all the reflections turned in unison and screamed, a horrible, silent scream that I felt in my bones. I burst through the door and collapsed on the floor, panting. I was back. I was home. I could smell the familiar scent of old popcorn and face paint. I looked up and saw my shoe rack, my squeaky nose lying on the floor where I'd dropped it. The wall behind the rack was solid, plain, and blessedly, wonderfully doorless. A wave of relief washed over me, so powerful it almost made my knees buckle. It was over. It was just a bad dream. A strange little trip. I must have dozed off. Hee-ha, what a silly clown. I stood up, dusting myself off, my usual grin slowly returning to my face. See? Nothing to be scared of. Just a little adventure. I picked up my horn and gave it a triumphant squeeze. But the sound that came out wasn't a cheerful squeak. It was a chime, a single, clear note that hung in the air like a frozen breath. And from the closet behind me, I heard a faint, dry, scraping sound. I turned around slowly, my painted smile frozen in place. The closet door was creeping open, and peeking from the darkness was a face. It was my face, but the eyes were black, empty pits, and the smile was all wrong. It looked at me, tilted its head, and whispered in my own voice, "Having fun?"